Mm.
$4.1 billion a
Mm.
year in social services as a direct result.
Hello, Empower Nation. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast. I'm your host, Angela Duncan. On today's episode, I get to interview Vicky Townsend. She's a divorce attorney. She's going to talk to us about the 5 different ways that you can go through your divorce and the staggering numbers that the government has to step in to help the single moms that end up on the other side of the divorce. Hi, Vicky. Welcome to Empower Her Money podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I know. We've had a couple opportunities now. We met on that live Facebook podcast interview and, we've stayed in touch, but I would love for you to first start off with how you kind of got started in your journey to get to what you're doing today.
Okay. Awesome. Well, my journey is probably not unlike so many of your listeners where I've been down the road of divorce now more than once. And, collectively, I've spent about $100,000 on it. I recognized that it was a really, really crazy process. And in doing that, the first company that I started was really is called the National Association of Divorce Professionals. And the goal of that company was to bring the licensed professionals together so that they could help people like me and like your listeners go through it with a holistic collective approach. Because my story was that my attorneys didn't talk to anybody else. I made so many stupid financial decisions I can't even tell you. And so I wanted to create a community of professionals that really cared about that process so that people didn't have the same experience that I did. And then with time and being in charge of a lot of the education that we did there, it started really to occur to me just how significant an impact financially this was. That I do this both for corporations, bringing in this benefit to employees and primarily first responders, so they don't spend their life savings ending a marriage that's not working. But I'm also really opening and broadening my base to help women, because they are just so disproportionately impacted financially and emotionally when a divorce happens. And, I know we're going to talk about that, but and I may get emotional because I get really, this whole process is just so aggravating for me that you have to pay somebody to talk to your spouse about your stuff and your kids. It's a crazy process.
I've seen several of my friends pay, upwards of 6 figures between attorney costs just to settle on some assets. And, it kind of brings to mind, what's that movie, Wedding Crashers, how I think that they were like the mediators between 2 people. And they're like, all right, what about the Southwest airline points? It's like, there's so many details to unravel and it's already super emotional process. So talk about, I would love for you to share some of the statistics. Obviously, you've been in the business for a while and you kind of see how divorce can impact a woman, especially a woman that maybe doesn't always know the full financial picture or is not greatly educated on finances.
Well, and it's not only that, first of all, nobody, really teaches anybody how to go through this or what the process is. So they'll call, maybe they heard one of their girlfriends or, a coworker or something that went through a divorce, and they'll hire the same attorney, not realizing that, they have a special needs child maybe, or they're going to need a religious divorce. They're going to need a Jewish get. Well, if they've hired, Joseph O'Flaherty for a Jewish get, it's probably not a good financial decision, right? To find out after the fact that they can't help with that, or even a Catholic annulment, a Muslim talik. If you're in a LGBTQ relationship, that has intricacies and some complexities to it. Just hiring the right person is, the key person. But you know what? In our industry, that gets me so frustrated is we have a very big brand in my industry, and that's you better lawyer up, right? You got to get a lawyer. I'm calling BS. You don't have to. You can get just a state certified mediator, and that person just acts as a neutral to help you guys work out your differences. And even if there are some things that maybe you can't settle, like it's usually finances and children. Mm-hmm. But let's at least get who gets the car, who gets the boat, who gets the motorcycle, who gets grandma's china, right? Some of those things, and to your point, the airline points, right? All of that stuff is something that can be mediated at one simple fee and get at least the majority of it out of the way. And then you spend your money on litigating those one or two little issues that you've got left. Most of the time, what we do is we combine mediation services with a life coach and a divorce coach. And when we do that, the expenses on this whole process go down significantly. Mm-hmm. And not only that, what we leave in the wake are two people that can still talk to each other. They don't run away when they run into each other at Publix in the produce section, right? They don't have to worry about where they're going to sit at a wedding or at a bridal shower or a baby shower. They can effectively co-parent their children separate from each other, but they can still be connected as former people that were very important in their lives, but they still have family together and they can get through that. So some statistics.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, the average divorce in the United States is about $13,000. And that's including, that takes all of the DIYs, the people that, don't have anything, go to the courthouse, which I believe in, by the way. And all the way up to, your fully litigated $100,000, $250,000. I know people personally that have spent over $1 million on their divorce. So that $13,500 or the $13,000 is not the typical litigated case, right? It's just an average of everything. So it's a very expensive proposition. And divorce is the number one reason that single mothers fall into poverty. And I want everybody on this to hear that, because they get bad representation, maybe even don't even have access to their funds. And I know that that's something that you speak so strongly about being in control of your own money, or understanding what your finances are. Mm-hmm. So many women find themselves out of control of that situation. They don't have access to funds to hire the type of attorney that they need to hire. Mm-hmm. Nobody teaches them how to do this. And, they end up falling into poverty. There were some studies done by a friend of mine. His name is Dr. David Schramm. He's from Utah State University. Back in 2003, I think, he did a study for the state of Utah. They commissioned him and his team to do a deep dive into the cost to the state of Utah's social services programs as a direct result of divorce. Mm-hmm. And now remember, that's a very Mormon state. Not a lot of divorces in Utah. And this was, now 21 years ago. And the number back then, you could probably be better at this than that, but the number back then was $300 million a year in the state of Utah. Yes. So fast forward 10 years later, 11 years ago, he was commissioned by the state of Texas to do the same study. Do you want to know what that money is? Now that one I know ramped up with today's inflation. $4.1 billion a year in social services as a direct result of divorce. People don't understand, as taxpayers, we are paying for the poor results as a result of a divorce case, right? You and I are supporting women that come out on the wrong side of this, leave everything, just feeling that they can start all over again. And we're not serving them right. The divorce laws that we have, the guidelines for support, um, and people think that, just because, another thing that they do is they call stay-at-home mom somebody that doesn't work. I call BS on that. They are the hardest working people. That's a 24, 24 hours, 7 days a week, 365 day a year job. And so but getting back into the workforce after they've been out of the workforce for 12, 15 years is, they're not going to earn what they could have earned if they had stayed in the workforce. So there's just so much that impacts women in such a negative way that I started my company, and now I've started mediation services across the United States. I offer a 25% discount to my employers, but I would be happy to do it to any of your listeners that are going through this, because I believe that you don't have to spend your entire life savings ending a marriage that's not working. Yeah. That's just my belief system. I will die on that hill. There are better ways to do this. Can I tell people, I would love to tell them about the ways to divorce, because my industry has one brand, and that's you got a lawyer up, right? You got to get a shark, you got to get a bulldog, you got to rip each other apart. Well, let me tell you something. That's where the money is. The money is in conflict and chaos. And I know personally, this upsets me a lot, honestly. Somebody in our area in South Florida that I know very well that professes to be somebody that, just wants to do this, kumbaya type of divorce. And I recommended somebody to that person. And I watched that lawyer stir up conflict and chaos where there was none. Right? Because baby needed a new pair of shoes. Right? And it's an industry where there's not only no incentive to get the divorce finalized, there's actually a financial incentive to keep it going.
Yeah. So, question for you, so that the audience understands. When you talk about the money that is spent for women post-divorce from the government, I things that come to my mind is like welfare, Section 8 housing, free school lunches, is that kind of where you're
transportation? Yeah, Section 8 housing, after school programs, WIC programs, all of that is what I'm talking about. 75% of all applications for welfare are a direct result of divorce. And who do you think that's mostly women?
Right. And affecting the women and the children, now going from one lifestyle to a shift to a completely different lifestyle.
You have men have a 22% greater risk of bankruptcy, and women have an 18% greater risk of bankruptcy after divorce. The whole system is broken. Our system is broken. And I, through conversations with wonderful people like you, I'm trying to change the world, trying to put a dent in a very big universe with a very big lobby, that you have to pay a lot of money to the very people that designed the system that make it hard to get out of.
So what are our options outside of the cutthroat litigate divorce? Right. Yeah.
Well, the first one is DIY. And I've actually worked with a family in Palm Beach. It was a $123 million estate. They trusted each other. They said, we want our children to have our money. We don't want to give it to lawyers. And I just assisted them with paperwork. They agreed that they, trusted each other to that everything was on the table. There was no hidden assets anywhere. And they had literally DIY'd their divorce. So don't think, if you're a listener, that you have to go that litigation route, or you even have to have representation. If you can trust each other enough, that might be an option for you. The second one is the one that I do, and the one that I love the most, because it is mediation. And that is with a neutral. And at Divorce Right and soon to be Farewell, we have a tremendous intake form. We want to find out if you have special needs children. We want to know if this is a blended family, or if there's custody matters, or if it's a religious divorce or cultural divorce. All of those things matter. And putting you with the right person automatically saves you money, because you're in the right hands with somebody that can solve the problems very effectively. So we have over 100 mediators with different specialties. And so mediation is one where it's you're a neutral. You're not representing either party, but what you are doing is helping them solve the differences that they have, the things that are on the table, the who gets the boat, might be who gets the business. How are the pensions going to be divided? What's going to happen to the 401ks? Those kinds of things can be handled and, I guess, ushered in through a certified state mediator that understands the guidelines, can help you get to the financial things that matter most to you. Like the thing that I like about mediation is you make those decisions. You may, and if a judge says that this is a fair distribution, that's all the judge wants to know. But you don't want the judge to make those decisions for you, right? You should be in control of what happens to your wealth, to your children, to your assets, to everything. And so mediation gives you that comfort. The third one is called arbitration, which is where you hire somebody to act as a judge. It's binding. That person does make the decisions. That's typically used for people that kind of can't come to a decision. The benefit of arbitration, particularly in today's world, is the average divorce, even here where you and I are in South Florida, takes between 12 and 18 months. And why is that? Because we're growing. And if you're in a growth community, we've lost family law judges, and we're not replacing them. So we are not only growing in population, so there's more divorces. And oh, by the way, divorce rate is up for the first time since 1960. Right? So we have more divorces, we have more people in these cities, and we're not replacing judges. So the court system is really filled. So an adjudicated case, arbitrated case, with a judge is an option for many. You can get in front of a judge very quickly. There is a price point to that, but you can get it through very quickly, particularly when you can't come to an agreement and you're going to be willing to live by that judge's decision. The fourth one is the collaborative process, which I like a lot too. It's, let's say you and I are married, you have an attorney and I have an attorney that are collaboratively trained. We literally sit in a room together where we iron out our differences. And sometimes there's a neutral financial person that's sitting at the table with them. And there's a neutral mental health counselor that's sitting at the table with them that keeps, the temperatures down, or maybe helping them make decisions about their children, about their children's custody matters and things like that. So that's a good one. That's 2 lawyers. It's not an inexpensive process, but it's another process where you can still run into each other at Publix and not kill each other, right? And then the last one, which is my least favorite, is litigation. And sadly, that's the brand of my industry. And if your listeners do nothing but walk away with understanding that there are less expensive ways to do it that cause less damage, not only financially, but emotionally, because that lawyering up, getting the bulldog, that sets the tone for the rest of your lives together. And it's rarely good.
Yeah.
Rarely good.
Give some advice maybe to the audience. Say, someone's listening right now and they think they might be heading towards divorce, and perhaps someone who is worried about finances because, obviously you run over the statistics. What advice would you give to them to help them prepare to go through that process?
Well, what I would love for them to do, and I actually have a course in this whole process that takes them, because I believe that you need to know what you need to know.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't understand the system can eat you alive.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's a system that is, doesn't favor us. It's a system that favors those that work in the system. And I'm not saying that everybody's like that. I don't want you to think that, because there are some really amazing attorneys. I know so many, and I'm happy to share those with your audience if they need them. But, know what you need to know. Like I say, if you want to reach out to me, I have a course that's available. It also comes with an hour of divorce coaching so that you can kind of get a feel for what's right. We can work through, how are you? Do you, mediation, by the way, is not right for everybody. You have to have the belief that all of your finances are on the table, that we know about everything. And then there can't be domestic violence, because that's a power imbalance. So, I don't like to, we won't, I mean, although we have done that before, it's just not my favorite thing, because there's just such an imbalance there. But other than that, I mean, we've mediated cases where they thought they were going to kill each other at the beginning. And at the end, they walked away and they went, you know what? I never really realized that, our communications styles were just so different. And had I known that, maybe things would have been different for us. So, mediation and DIY, those are my two favorites: collaborative third, arbitration fourth, and then litigation.
Yeah. And so when you're thinking of change of lifestyle, right? I think you mentioned having the life coach as part of your process. I think that's very valuable. So can you talk a little bit about the responsibilities, maybe how they help you partner with you to go through this process?
Well, right. We also have, we have a membership program that includes access to a divorce coach, a life coach, a money coach, a health and wellness coach, a career coach, and a dating and relationship coach. So we have all of those people that we can bring to the table. And with that said, the life coach kind of helps them understand, like, really, what are your goals here? What do you want for the rest of your life? And let's help you get there. That's what a life coach brings to that table. And then when they both understand really what their long-term goals are, and if we can stop them from saying, but this happens, but, in that case where I just want her to not have anything, right? Right.
Yeah.
It's sometimes, and that happens more often than I care to think about. But if they really can come to the conclusion that they just want to live their life in a different way, and their spouse wants to live their life in a different way, they can start to say, hey, we just have different goals, and I want to meet mine. I want to help you get to yours. And life coaching helps you do that. Divorce coaching helps you strategize, right? What's right for you? How do you get the right evidence if you need it? What kind of documentations do you need? We help you build a timeline if you need, if you're trying to go for full custody. There's different reasons for each person in this coaching practice that we have, because those are the areas of your life that get totally messed up, right?
Yeah.
And also a life coach kind of helps you find yourself again, right?
Yeah.
Get your identity back.
Yeah, that was probably one of the hardest things when I went through my divorce, because we were together for a long time. We grew businesses together. And then you're thinking, okay, who am I now? Which my friends would tell me, oh, it's such an exciting time. You get to reinvent yourself. But I was like, no, I feel lost, like insecure and lost. It's not a great time. I'm going through this huge transition, and I don't think of that in a positive way. So I could see how that life coach could really come in handy. And even for me, who we were able to amicably decide how to split everything, which was great. And there's enough money there for me not to, I'm grateful I didn't have to go through the poverty part of it, but I still felt extremely insecure about like what's next.
Absolutely. And, think about it. If you're a stay-at-home mom and you've been out of the workforce, I mean, you don't even know what Google Sheets and Google Docs and all of that stuff is anymore, much less being able to get back into the workforce and understand how to utilize and, social media for your business. I mean, whatever. There's just so much that's gone past you. So we have a career coach that can help you. Let's figure out what you can do. Let's help you leverage that to make the most money that you can for the rest of your career.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really is an all-encompassing life shift on every level, financially, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, everything.
Yeah. And the finance coach, I think, is key too, because now you're in a different lifestyle. So you have to decide for you and for maybe your kids, what does that look like? What are your true expenses so that you can feel comfortable knowing that when you walk away, what your financial picture might look like. And, I teach a lot to women who are married as well, to even if they're not interested in knowing all of the things about the finances, they do need to know a good foundation of it. And when you have the husband and wife who are married and they can be on the same page about their money, I mean, it just makes it hopefully stronger and they don't end up needing your services.
Angela, you don't know how many women come to us and have no idea about they don't even know their account numbers.
Mm-hmm.
They don't know how to get access. They're giving quote unquote an allowance, right? And they know nothing. I feel, and I'm going to tell you, I've been guilty of this myself, which was I kind of just prayed that I had married a decent man that wouldn't do that to me. And then you find out, golly, that was just the wrong decision to make, to be so trusting. Yeah. So find out, another piece of advice for anybody even thinking about it, find out where the money is, find out, because you're going to need it. And it will be used as a sword if you are not careful. And having access to cash at this time of your life is really important.
Yeah.
Right?
And think about like the collectibles too. Could be guns, could be cars, could be coins. I mean, everything that, has a value to it. You've got to make sure that you're aware of what that picture looks like.
Absolutely. And there are, for those that worry about like how am I going to pay for this and things like that if they don't have access to it, there are opportunities. And I know this sounds really awful, but there are opportunities to sell your wedding ring and, use that to get the hell out, it's like, it's almost like a, kind of like a chef's kiss on, on getting out of a really toxic relationship. But there are some things that you can do. I actually did sell mine, not because of that reason particularly, but I just didn't want the energy of it anymore.
Yeah,
I really didn't. I mean, it's like, what am I going to do with this? I didn't want a diamond pendant with that diamond on it, so I didn't want it anymore. It just, every time I looked at it, it was a trigger for me. So be gone. Let somebody else, I'm going to wish it well. I cleaned it, I did the washing it in salt water and did all of that stuff before I gave it to somebody else. So, have better results, please.
Yeah. Yes. So Vicky, if our audience wants to get in touch with you, learn more about your course and your services, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, let me give you a couple of phone numbers, a phone number and an email address. And I would love to hear from anybody. My phone number is area code 954-677-9500. And you can always email me at Vicky, and I'm Vicky with a Y, at divorcerightinc.com. That's INC.com.
Awesome. And Vicky, I have a fun question for you to kind of end the show on maybe a more positive note, because it's a very heavy subject. If you could have a superpower, what would it be and why?
I was thinking, when you asked me that, I sat there and said, I think I would love to fly. I would love, because I'm here in South Florida. I'm living in Georgia. My kids are in Denver. I'd love to be able to fly anywhere I wanted to fly and go there and just enjoy and explore the world on my terms and do it when I want to and not at the not in a seat in a Boeing airplane.
Yeah, I can definitely understand that. Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you so much for all of your guidance and the information, and thanks for being a guest on Empower Her Money.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.